In the heart of Manhattan, wedged between a celebrity-owned juice bar and a luxury boutique, stood Dan's Royal Nail Salon, a glittering oasis where wealthy executives, influencers, tourists, and everyday New Yorkers came for one thing: perfection. Dan, a tall, impeccably dressed man with slicked-back jet-black hair and a Rolex that gleamed brighter than any Swarovski crystal in his salon, ran the place like a king, and to his credit, business boomed. But beneath the marble floors, imported orchids and warm lavender steam floated a secret every client sensed, but could never prove. Because Dan had a habit, no, a hobby, of roasting his clients. Not in English, but in his native language, fast, sharp, slicing insults that sent his workers into fits of laughter while customers stared in confusion, wondering, "Are they talking about me?" And the answer was almost always, yes. Dan had commentary for everyone. "Bigfoot, big toe," he'd whisper while filing calluses so thick they could strike sparks. "Uneven toes, need construction, not pedicure," he'd mutter as he slapped on polish. "Hands so rough, can start fire," he'd say while sculpting acrylic nails. And his favorite, "Why people breathe smell like hot garbage in summer." Year after year he insulted people openly, secure in the fact that no one could understand him. Until one day, fate knocked on his glittering glass door. Her name was Catherine Pierce, a stunning, sharp-featured licensed inspection officer with icy blue eyes, a perfect blowout, and a reputation for shutting down salons without blinking. Known as the Ice Queen Inspector, she arrived wearing a tailored beige trench coat and a clipboard that destroyed careers. Dan greeted her with his signature fake smile. "Welcome. We very clean. Best in New York." But Catherine's nose twitched. Drip, drip, drip. A puddle of water trailed from the supply closet. She opened the door. Mold. Black, furry, thriving mold, and a pipe leaking like a fountain. Her voice was cold as polished marble. "Mr. Dan, this is a serious violation." Dan almost fainted. He pleaded. He begged. He tried to joke. But Catherine was unmoved. The salon was issued a mandatory fix order, and he had 72 hours to resolve it. Humiliated, panicked, and furious, Dan hired the best plumbing and remediation crew in the city, because losing his salon meant losing everything. 3 days later, repairs complete, Catherine returned to verify. And after inspecting every corner, she nodded. "Repairs are satisfactory." Dan exhaled dramatically, clutching his chest. To celebrate, and to butter her up, he insisted, "Please, you stay. I give you luxury manicure and pedicure, on the house, VIP." Catherine's eyes glinted. "Actually, that works perfectly." Then she calmly said, "I'm here to observe your professionalism during services as part of the case follow-up." Dan didn't hear the warning inside her tone. Catherine sat back in the plush massage chair, placing her feet into warm water. And the salon team gathered around, Dan leading the service himself. She looked poised, relaxed, even appreciative. But under the table, something else was happening. When Dan got a glimpse of her feet, his soul jumped. Her bunions peaked like small mountains. Her pinky toes bent like question marks. A faint, dark shade sat beneath her nails like tiny shadows. Dan's eyes widened, and he snapped. He slipped into his native language instantly. Fast. "Look. Toe, look like small potato, blackness under nail. Why she no scrub? And hand so rough, she climb mountain? And breath? Oh my God, smells like garbage truck hit by dragon." His workers choked, trying not to laugh. One slapped another's shoulder. One pretended to cough just to hide the giggles. Catherine sat silently as her phone, placed face down beside her, lit up faintly every few seconds. Because she had a live translation app running, capturing every word, every insult, every nasty remark, every joke about her feet, hands, and breath. When she finally glanced at her screen, The translation stabbed her like needles. Small potato toe. Garbage breath, hands like mountain climber. Her eyes watered, not because of the insults, but because of the audacity. Because Dan, the man she gave a second chance, the man she allowed to keep his fancy empire, was openly humiliating her while she was doing her job. Still, she let him finish, and when he gently helped her from the chair, escorting her toward the door with a strange romantic flair, he said, "You have beautiful hands, beautiful feet. Come again, Miss Catherine." She forced a smile. "Thank you, Dan." But her silence was a storm forming. The next morning, Dan strutted toward his salon humming cheerfully, feeling victorious. But when he turned the corner, his keys slipped from his fingers, his heart cracked, his knees buckled, because wrapped around his pristine glass storefront was bright yellow caution tape, fluttering in the cold breeze. A massive red notice was stapled across the front door. It was an official closure notice by order of the City of New York that indicated effective immediately. He clawed at the door. It wouldn't budge. Inside, inspectors moved like shadows. A photographer snapped pictures. A city officer handed him a copy of the order. Dan gasped as he read, "Due to observed violations of professional conduct, ethical standards, and hostile client treatment during official evaluation." Another line stated, "The behavior displayed during the inspection follow-up was deemed unfit for public service." And then, signed neatly at the bottom, was Catherine Pierce, Senior Licensing Inspector, Division of Professional Standards. After seeing this, Dan staggered back, trembling. He thought the leak would ruin him, but it was his mouth that destroyed everything. He collapsed to the sidewalk, gripping the closure notice, whispering, "Small potato toe. Why I say that?" As he sat there sobbing, a black city SUV pulled up. The passenger window rolled down. Catherine looked out, calm, polished, unreadable. "Mr. Dan," she said, "professionalism matters, even when you think no one understands you." Then she added the part that would haunt him forever. "Oh, and I heard every word you said about my breath, hands, and feet. The translation app on my phone recorded everything. It's all on file." Then she gave him one sympathetic look and said, "Maybe one day you'll learn that humility is a better language than mockery." The SUV drove off. Dan stared at the taped-off salon that once made him a king, realizing that in the end, it wasn't mold, it wasn't leaks, it wasn't fate, it was his own words that destroyed him and caused him to lose everything.